Hello, Heli Helperton here again. Like to do a quick review on a little heli here that I'm hearing a lot of negative input about, but I want to say some good things about it. This is, let's see, my second collective pitch. Year or two ago, probably at least 2 years actually. And like I say, I've seen a lot of people panning this thing online. There's a couple problems that people are having, and one of them is guys with little or no heli experience, or just, you know, some dual rotor stuff, are going into these things. And these, I mean, for a small collective pitch, they're pretty tame, but they're very hot for somebody that's, you know, trying to learn. And they're much better than its predecessor, which is the Blade CP, which is an absolutely terrible helicopter. And if you fly one, God bless you, because I do know some guys that can. I can't, and I don't know very many that can. But anyway, what they did with the SR, of course, they made it all brushless and LiPo battery, and strengthen the frame. It shares some head parts with the CP, actually with the CP Pro. Most of the head parts will interchange. The frame, like I say, is much heavier than the CP was, and it'll take a little more abuse than some of them will. But anyway, back to, I think a lot of the problems with them, guys are getting these things and expecting them to be mega easy, and they're not. I would really, unless you fly airplanes or have some heli experience, some substantial heli experience, I would probably go with a fixed pitch before I would this one. And also on the fixed pitch, I would go with, as you see here, this fly bar is at a 90-degree angle. You want to go with a fixed pitch that is at a 45-degree angle. It's coming out about here. Now, the reason you want to do that is it's a lot calmer. It gives you more reaction time. 90 degrees is very quick. A helicopter inputs are about 90 degrees off. You go into that 45, it just calms it down and doesn't have as much movement in it. But anyway, if you get into one of these, the trick to it, and this is with most helis, now when you're learning, you know, you're taught, well, if you crash, chop that throttle. Well, you do want to chop the throttle if you crash, but your idea is to not crash. So with this SR, and I used to sell these in a hobby shop, West Virginia Hobby and Craft in Tays Valley, West Virginia, good place. But guys would come in and buy these and like, oh man, I just keep tearing it up, you know, buying parts. So for a matter of fact, this one was one that somebody sold because they couldn't fly it, and I got it for $100, which is a pretty good price. But anyway, the trick to it is, if you get in trouble with this thing, if you're, it's doing this, you know, to one side, it's going forward out of control. The very first thing you want to do with this thing is jam that throttle up, because when you're in this sideways motion, you've lost a lot of your lift. Your lift has changed to sideways thrust. And your first instinct, of course, is to hit the collective, but it may be too late by then. I'm sorry, the cyclic. So what you want to do is you want to jam on that power, and it's twofold. One, it gives you some lift back, and it also tends to want to straighten up the helicopter. Now, when I first started flying it, I, you know, tore it up pretty good 2 or 3 times. And once I figured that out, and by the way, that works with a lot of helis, but once I figured that out, I was able to salvage it just about it. I've wrecked it 1 time since then, and I was way up high, and it was toward dark, and of course I put lights on it like I do everything. I'll plug it in here for you. But the other thing about it is, give you a look at all the lights there. Isn't that pretty? Okay. The other thing is, there's a couple actually other things. Guys tend to, and I thought I had the radio here, but I don't have it handy, but they only come in a ready to fly. And there's a reason for that. Horizon has set up that radio to make this helicopter easier to fly for a beginner. Now, if you are a seasoned helicopter flyer and you want to put in your 6i or 7 or whatever, go ahead and do that. You know how to set one up. But I see a lot of guys that take them out of the box and go, oh no, I don't want to run other radio, so I'm going to put it on my 6i. Well, that's fine, but you don't know the settings they got in this thing to make it easier to fly. So I would definitely stick with the radio that comes with it until you get good and comfortable with it. And then you can get somebody to help you or go through the setup in your other radio. And I know I've got radios all over the little hanger here. But it is better to stick with it. And another thing I see guys doing is they plug in that gyro for the 5th channel, or I'm sorry, the 6th channel or whatever. But they're plugging that in and trying to control it from the radio, which is okay to do when you get on the the bigger stuff and the bigger radios and have all that programmed in. But for some reason, Horizon does not plug them in at the factory, and if Horizon doesn't plug it in at the factory, it's probably a good idea not to. Stick with your manual settings. Like here, I've put a little jet exhaust thing on here, but I still left it where I can get to my gyro and change the settings if I need to. But I've seen guys do that. I've seen guys have success with it, and I've seen them not have success with it. My advice to you be don't do it, because I mean, if it was a good thing to do, believe me, Horizon would do it. It serves no purpose for them to sell you something that you're just going to tear up and go, forget that, I don't want to fly helicopters. They want you to fly this, be successful, maybe buy a few parts here and there, but they want you to go on and buy a 450 or and so on and so on. Anyways, if you stick to those things, remember, if you get in trouble, give it some power. Start out with just keeping the tail aimed at you so all your controls are straight. You get in trouble, give it some power. Definitely chop the power if a crash is inevitable, but there's a lot of times when you can save it by just giving it some power. Always make sure your fly bars are straight. These are kind of a weak point. There's plastic under there. Another thing, I can't remember. I can't remember if I added these or it comes up. But you can put extra weights on the fly bar. The heavier that fly bar is, the more it takes for it to react, and that gives you a little more stability. And after you get used to all this stuff, like don't feel bad. I'm an inadequate flyer because I got to do it. It's not like that. Helicopters take a lot of practice, a lot of patience, and a lot of money. And go ahead and keep it calm till you get used to it. You don't have to show anybody up. You don't have to satisfy anybody but yourself and your wallet. So, use it as it is out of the box. You get in trouble, add some power. If you can afford to do it, you can put a 1320 Thunder Power battery in there. And one other little modification I did was to bend the tail boom up to get the tail rotor up a little higher. Helicopters, you'll notice, when they hover, they tend to hover at a slight angle, like such. Now, when you're new and stuff, that can confuse you because you're waiting on it to take off sideways. Well, they hover like this because you got torque up here at the rotor and torque pushing at the tail boom, and that torque, since this is below the head, it tends to make it roll. Now, real helicopters have many ways of dealing with that. You've probably noticed tail rotors up high on them. They'll set the center shaft off to the right a little bit. That's why helicopter pilots sit on the right. That was originally why, to help that torque roll. But anyway, have fun with it, and if you have any questions, be sure to put it on my video thing there, and I'd be glad to help you. But I think it's been getting a bad rap. It's really a pretty good little helicopter, especially for the money. Thank you.